So my talk today discusses artificial intelligence in the context of metabolic machines and demons of life. Some philosophers and programmers don't like the term AI or artificial intelligence because intelligence is hard to define. But my approach is very simple. Intelligence is derived from intellegere, which means to choose or make a decision, and this coincides with the Greek definition of a demon or daimon, that is a decision maker. And to make decisions, you need a metabolism. The Greek meaning of metabolism, or metabola in Greek, is change. And today in biology, it describes processes of life. We eat and drink, we consume molecules and transform them into energy and somatic cells, and metabolic processes allow organisms to grow, to reproduce, maintain their structures, and respond to their environments. In analogy to a biological metabolism, I would like to speak of a symbolic, a cognitive, and digital metabolism. Our brain, for example, processes data and information like our intestine molecules. As humans, we have a triple metabolism, a physically biological one, an economic one of resources and goods, and a symbolic cognitive one of sensory data, signs, and symbols. A deterministic machine like a car, computer, software, and so on is not called a metabolic system. But what about artificial intelligence, neural networks that autonomously process data, learn, and organize themselves? As an artist, I'm interested in the connections and exchanges between symbolic and materials in metabolism, because I think this is a specific challenge for art today. I start with a recent project entitled Porgy and Bess. As Daria already told, it is based on an artificial neural network. And you know Porgy, it derives from cyborg, and Bess from Russian demon, which refers to Dostoevsky, novel Bessie, or in English demons, feed on data from the internet. They swallow and they digest world events in the form of news. The two lambs, which formerly looked at human bodies during surgical operations, now discuss the social body in 19th century Russian language. This creates an atmospheric distance from the topicality of the present and causes a post-human alienation. The linguistic and motor abilities change over time because the systems learn like infants or better like aliens. In contrast to a mechanically determined machine, Porgy and Bess has an algorithmic metabolism. For my works, I prefer the term poetic more than aesthetic. I use poetic in the very Greek meaning of poiesis, in the sense of making and producing. The objects are performing, self-acting subjects. They talk with processes, data streams, or living organisms. Metaphors and allegories are the traditional language of art, but metabolism is the crucial point of contemporary art today. Metabolism enables art to enter reality, to connect artworks with processes in nature, society, and our daily life. An artwork builds relations between the symbolic realm and the realm of the real. Only these transformations and translations between those spheres bring an artwork into the world. And in this sense, my art is metabolism as a new realism. The idea of data metabolism led me to net art in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Data from the net allowed a new access to reality to connect an artwork with processes going on in the world. Data can be processed in real time and thus enable a new interpretation of Eco's concept of an open artwork. It is not the viewer who subjectively participates in the work of art and constructs it, but systemic data from the net that refer to social, political, or economic realities. In house music, for example, here, stock market data were converted into musical notes in real time. According to the fluctuations of the pull and the beer markets, automated instruments, a violin and a piano, played the concert. House music, in the meaning of oikos, is not produced by traditional authorship, by composers or musicians, but by metabolism of financial markets and economy. House music was a simple metabolism as a transposition of economic into musical notations. More complex was the work Proust machine, which was developed at the same time in the early 90s. The artificial neural network of the machine was trained by the novel In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. The software rewrote the news reports in the linguistic structure of Marcel Proust to generate a current novel in real time as a chronometer of social life. Proust's thesis that we lose time through media consumption was realized under the condition of post-human authorship. Human reading and machinic writing diverged, generating thousands of pages daily. The result was an endless novel of a digital écriture automatique. Data metabolic systems, I mean works that eat and digest data autonomously and convert them into new data, always based on a software that I call daemon. In ancient Greece, the daemon was a translator between ideas and matter, gods and humans. And furthermore, a daemon or demon was a distributor of fate, of resources, goods, and information. Daemon is derived from the verbs daio and dio. Dao means to learn, to know, and dio means to distribute, to arrange, or to govern. To this day, the word demon hides in many common words, theories, and concepts. For example, democracy comes from demos, which means people or nations, and demos derives from daimon. In this sense, a daimon is a governor, a decision maker, and an allocator. Allocation, for example, is a central basic principle of economics and politics, and also the topic of Adam Smith's invisible hand. My artwork manifesto here processes data from the Lloyd's insurance market in London with assesses global risks. A hand here, it's not an invisible, but a chopped or amputated hand draws line on the wall like a witchboard, which over time condenses into a cloud. In the 17th century, Lloyd's was a coffee house in London, where ship owners and businessmen met to spread the risks of shipping. In order to assess the risks, lists were drawn up of all ship catastrophes, cargo losses, and later, furthermore, meteorological and political risks. Lloyd's was not just a place to connect business people, it was the beginning of connecting the future with statistics of the past. And it was the beginning of what we call now big data. Today, this is done in real time, and it includes weather forecasts, climate change, economic data, and cyber attacks, as well as news reports, in order to produce forecasts and risk assessments like an oracle or like in the movie Minority Report. This is already the beginning of a cybernetic consciousness that connects all accessible data and processes it with AI. And so it's no longer just a matter of navigating ships through stormy seas, but of companies and entire states. Cybernetics, related to the Greek Kubernetes, which means helmsman, takes the decisive turn here. Long before Norbert Wiener, the French physicist André-Marie Ampère defined cybernetics as the control of governments in 1834. In the 1970s, for example, Stafford Beer attempted to implement cybernetic governance using CyberSyn in Chile for President Allende. Demons today are not only fictional or mythical creatures in literature, religion, superstition, or pop culture. We find them also in science, technology, art, economics, and politics. And as I said before, without demons, there can be no governance and no cybernetics. Our daily lives are full of demons, and with the emergence of new technologies and AI, cultural demons are becoming more and more prevalent in a network society. We find them in electronic devices in the form of algorithmic trading, in biotechnology, surveillance technology, and also in art. It would lead too far to go in detail about demons in cultural history. and their significance for cybernetics, so in brief few examples. The very first demon of cosmic genesis is the Greek demiurge. He brings ideas and forms into matter. He's a translation machine from software to hardware and badware, from logos to flash, and that's why he's a symbol for cosmic cosmological metabolism. The Greek demiurge is for me the very first 3D printer in mythology. The German poets Christoph Wieland and Johann Wolfgang Goethe invented the term Weltliteratur in the 18th century. Today, world literature takes a new meaning. Literature not only describes the world, it is produced the object of the world. And the new authors of this Weltliteratur are the demons of artificial intelligence. The ancient concepts of demons we have to think in new contexts. More and more demons become machines, biochemical and digital machines. For example, the very strong demon Eros or Amor, the demon of love, is formalized as algorithmic code. Operation Match, for example, was the first computer dating service in the United States, begun in 1965, which connected humans with humans by machine. And today, most dating apps use artificial intelligence. Another very strong demon, the Holy Spirit, enters not as a higher source any longer. It enhances the brain digital and molecular. In future times, maybe, we are all enlightened people speaking in tongues, and glossolalia becomes a molecular and digital application in our brain. For example, the company Neuralink wants to implantate brain-computer interfaces, so-called BCIs, to connect the brain with the internet. Ironically, I can say in the future, we may not only have artificial intelligence, we may have artificial identity. On the left-hand side, you see me with a simple BCI, a so-called transcranial magnetic stimulation at Moscow. Daria has already shown. This enables a connection between computer and brain, and the computer can send commands to certain regions of the brain. This way, for example, my hand was externally controlled. It feels really creepy to see the fingers move without own control, so a little bit like in a seance. And just for fun, I say, cars today are using driving assistance, and I ask, will our bodies perhaps use AI-controlled BCIs in the future? In the history of art, there's a special idea of governance and demon. It's the genius that haunts the artist and leads him the brush. Genius, by the way, is the Roman translation for the word daimon. In this sense, a good painting is not done by the artist, it is painted by a demon, like here in the painting by Jan Gossard. So for me, genius and angels are mythical artificial intelligences. This painting by Sigmar Boyke is entitled Higher Spirits Dictated, Paint the Top Right Corner Black. The title sounds ironical, but Boyke says, my painting is in deeper meaning instructed. I have always worked onto a higher draft. Deep meaning reminds me of Deep Dream from Google and shows that a genius is not a person with special abilities, but someone who is controlled by a higher intelligence and ruled like a puppet. Nevertheless, the concept of genius makes sense in the context of materialism and actor network theory. For cybernetic and metabolic art, I suggest to link genius with engineer and engine. Both words derive etymologically from genius or daimon. And that makes sense, because the engineer informs a piece of matter. This means that the demon operates in the machine, not the engineer or artist is possessed, it is the machine or artwork itself. This principle is shown by a centrifugal governor, the first or very first cybernetic demon of history and industrial revolution. The great invention of James Watt was to use it as a controller to regulate the speed of a steam engine. The governor of James Watt gives the engine a kind of self-awareness and a simple consciousness. The term governor clarifies the field of cybernetics, which in the tradition of the Greek daimon ranges from the management of state affairs to technological controls. And governor is the Roman word for kybernetes, the Greek word for steersman's art or helmsman's art. Evolution in nature, for me, started with microbes. And for me, the evolution of cybernetic machine has begun with the governor. In my sculpture here, the governor is driven by information instead of steam. With incoming data traffic, I use so-called DDoS attacks of the Internet of Things, supported by Kaspersky Lab in Moscow. The governor starts to revolve. And the more the traffic is high, the faster it rotates. Otherwise, it runs slowly or stands still. In science and technology, we can find many demons, especially since Enlightenment. Notably, the Maxwell demon is still influential till today in physics, information theory, and biology. The science fiction writer Stanislav Lem, for instance, fictionalizes the Maxwell demon as an information demon in his book Cyber Yada. A second-order demon generates in Lem's book order from chaos by selecting information from thermal noise of the air. The result of this artificial intelligence is a perpetuum mobile for literature, which generates endless texts. And by the way, Cyber Yada inspired me to data concerts in the early 90s, in which random data from the internet and radio frequency were transformed by a software demon into beats and techno music. Based on Maxwell, Lord Kelvin, Laplace, and so on, demons become the epitome of artificial intelligence in general. For example, in 1958, Oliver Selfridge, a student of Norbert Wiener, wrote a paper about artificial intelligence, which he entitled Pandemonium, a Paradigm for Learning. This inspired the development of artificial neural networks and the idea of artificial intelligence in general. A few years later, Fernando Copeito and his science team at the MIT wrote the computer program Daemon. It was a simple backup program, and Daemon was a backronym for Disk and Execution Monitor. And this is important because it was the beginning where machines started to talk to themselves. It influenced all later programs, from chatbots to search bots to viruses and artificial intelligence agents. And in this sense, the most mindful and greedy demon who haunts the internet today is the Googlebot. And since Copeito's demon, a demon is generally a process without human control that runs constantly in the background of an operating system. That is why, for example, BSD, a version of the operating system Unix, used a little demon as logo. Normally, a user is not confronted with demons, but when an email is undeliverable, we sometimes get a message from the mailer demon. More and more demons take possession of our environment and connect us imperceptibly with networked processes. These demons lurk in smartphones and smart homes. In Demon Seed, a science fiction horror film with Julie Christie of 1997, a computer engineer develops the first smart home. All facilities in the house are computer monitored and networked to support the residents. But suddenly, the AI takes control, makes the home to a prison, and spreads virally over the internet to take over world domination. So the old mythological demons become a technological update. They are electromagnetic ghosts, digital entities, and artificial intelligences. And this creates a new digital hauntism. With the spread of AI, a new epoch begins. The geosphere and biosphere are joined by a new demonsphere. Finally, I come back to Porgy and Bess. The project is part of a conceptual narration in which further objects in installation are integrated. All of them refer to Dostoevsky's novel, The Demons, especially to the character Kirillov, an engineer who undertakes a fatal experiment in order to prove free will. Kirillov says in the novel of Dostoevsky, if man has free will, he can conclude his own destiny. And if he's not under control of any higher spirit or gods, he can end his life whenever he wants. And so he decides to prove his own will and to shoot himself. For this reason, he becomes a demon in my installation here, where he's reborn as a virtual ghost. For example, the ghost of Kirillov opens and closes drawers of a desk, walks around, and animates objects in the animation. And this is the turning point For a new animism, where demons inhabit objects, as in my work, Daimon here, where DDoS attacks, worldwide detected by Kaspersky Lab, take possession of material objects, which begin to vibrate, to move, and to make sound. Free will and decision-making is the crucial point of artificial intelligence, but in addition, other aspects are crucial. And that's negentropy and immortality. Kirillov becomes not only a bes, a demon. In my work, he also becomes besmertie, which means immortal. The Russian cosmist Nikolai Roscoe, for example, believed that the extract from any document or text is sufficient to determine the individual structure formula of the author and to reconstruct him virtually. And exactly this, today, promises the software GPT-2 of OpenAI. Another cosmist, Nikolai Fyodorov, describes the Museum of the Future as a place not for dead, but for technical reanimated humans. This was science fiction at the time, but today where Google, Facebook, or WeChat are constantly collecting data, a digital rebirth is approaching technical feasibility. Ironical, I would say, we will end not in graves, we will end as demons in cyberspace. And in this sense of Fyodorov, the Museum of the Future will not exhibit works of art, but artists with the help of AI. I say this with a lot of irony. Salvador Dali once said, I believe in general in death, but in the death of Dali, absolute not. Since last week, the Dali Museum in Florida has fulfilled the painter's prophecy to bringing him back to virtual life. On the one hand, AI makes art kitschy, boring, conservative, especially sometimes TensorFlow-based art. But on the other hand, AI also opens up new possibilities of making art more complex. Artificial intelligence may have the same effect on contemporary art as photography had on the 19th century painting. A demonic work of art today must go far beyond that and build a complex metabolism with real processes in the world. And art must reflect the hauntism of artificial intelligence, which is realized socially and politically. We must accept that in the future, we will be no longer the only intelligent beings. But I think future AI will be completely different than the visions of Raymond Kurzweil or Nick Bostrom. Long before the digital brain, we will have a digital intestine that eat and digest data. We will have a digital metabolism, and we will have digital demons like enzymes in our body. Just as we have gut feelings, we will have a cybernetic subconsciousness before we have a cybernetic consciousness. A digital subconscious is probably more dangerous than a strong AI because it works in the dark and forms a blind spot. And that's why demons and metabolism are the crucial point and the excellent challenge and opportunity to develop new poetic and aesthetic concepts. And that, for me, brings art into reality. Thank you.
Thank you a lot for your great contribution. Are there any questions? Yeah, I think I have one quite provocative question. Oh, do you have a question? Can a machine produce a second-order art? So you were talking a bit about it.
I have a provocative answer. Machines are invented to make second-order art for me as an artist. Yeah? So that's my main interest to work with machines because they are able to make art more complex. If you go back to the art history of the 19th century, artists were born, went to art academy, and they worked like slaves to work in the algorithm of a style, to produce an oeuvre of paintings. So that's over. So the history of style is gone. And now we had concept art from beginning in the 50s, 60s, and 1970s, and this art was much more complex. And now we have maybe something we can produce art not like an object, more like a subject. So these artworks can produce artworks by itself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you a lot. So probably we are moving on to the next part of the program. Thank you a lot again.